So that's something you can't really override because we aren't allowed to start a C-section unless the temperature is a certain point, just due to infection and things like that. Anyway, do you guys have questions about controlling the environment in your room? 3 things I came up with is you can bring in music. You can either just play it from your phone, or you can have a Bluetooth speaker, or you can play it. I love like a Kindle Fire because they're not very expensive. To bring that into the room, load it up with movies, put on your favorite tunes, and just that is like the media player when you're in labor. I think that's a great idea. And then I also came up with lighting. Like some people really want the room bright and some people really want the room dim. So we don't know what you want unless you tell us. Of course, when you initially come, we're going to turn all the lights on because we need to do a full assessment. We often need to put in an IV, and I think we can all agree that we do not want us putting in the IV in the dark. Guys, feel free to ask your questions in the comments. But after we do that initial assessment, a lot of times we can make the lights dim. We don't want it totally dark in there for your safety and ours because we have to come in the room, check on you, chart. We can't have it just like completely blacked out. If that's what you want, I would bring an eye mask. And then another thing I thought of was aromas. Is there a smell that makes you feel more comfortable? And there's so many cool essential oil companies out there right now that do these kind of things to help make your labor room more like what you like. Like I love an orange smell. I love the essential oils orange smell. So ask me your questions in the comments. Some other things I thought of. The temperature. Sometimes you have to ask to get the temperature that you would like if it's too hot or too cold. And sometimes they have a control in the room that you're allowed to adjust it on your own. Just depends on your hospital. But we were always able to call like whoever's in charge of environment, I think it was like environmental services, and say room 257 would like her room colder. Yeah. Chelsea said, any tips for a scheduled C-section, second baby due in December? That is such a... Chelsea, first off, I would 100% recommend taking a birth class. If you only want to take the C-section portion, I actually have C-sections made easy that you can find under resources. Just because you're just going to know so much more. But if you had like an emergency C-section or even like a quick C-section last time, I can't tell you how much better it's going to be this time. Things are just going to be so much more controlled, that kind of thing. If you're planning on a scheduled C-section, you can still think about a lot of these and also how you want your recovery room to be. You have a lot more control over that for the most part. A lot of times we can't like turn off the lights because it's like curtains, and also we need to be able to see you. Like when you get into PACU, we're there with you the whole time. We want to make sure you're breathing and all those kind of things. So I don't know why I hid your comment. Yeah, so I would still take a prenatal class. I know a lot of people are like, oh, it's my second baby, I don't need a prenatal class, and I disagree. I still think it can be super helpful to go through, and I actually have like just an online course version of mine that just goes through labor really quick, and I recommend that one with it. Shaparatia. Guys, feel free to ask your questions in the comments. Can I record my last labor even if they don't allow? I mean, if they don't allow recording, then I wouldn't. I would ask what you can record. I know a lot of places, as soon as baby's out, you can record. A lot you can take pictures, but they can have security come confiscate your phone, as far as I know, if they do not allow recording in the labor room. Yeah. And you got to remember, your labor professionals cannot leave the room. They're not allowed to like not be in there. And so it is really unfair to still have to record them, even if they would prefer not. Another thing you can do is just ask the people in the room if they're comfortable with it, or if you can record and not record their faces, things like that. Ask more questions, but I would definitely, if they say do not record, I would not record, just because they're professionals and they're trying to help you out. That is my opinion. Yeah. If a provider has a high C-section rate, should I find a new OB for VBAC? Ooh. Nani, that's a tough one. I would look around. It can be hard to really find a new provider depending on where you live, the resources in your area, things like that. It can get real dicey and tricky. But I would definitely look around. Has the provider told you their C-section rate? Like, what is it? Is it over a third? Some providers just like to section a lot. And I know a lot of people are like, oh, the hospital has this high C-section rate, but we had 2 providers leave our hospital and our C-section rate went in half. Like, we were at like 40% and went to 20% when those 2 providers quit, because they just loved a C-section, bless their little hearts. So I would definitely look around. All right, looks like those are the questions. You guys have any more questions? We have one from Facebook. I'm 23 weeks, measuring 27. I feel so exhausted, legs tired, ankles hurt. It's normal to feel tired even if you get a lot of rest. It is, yes. Tell us in the comments if you feel tired. I think a lot of people would agree with you, and they are super tired. Also, you're just growing a baby, and it's hard to grow a baby inside your body. So it's very, very normal. You should be getting a anemia test, so you could be having some anemia. And so you could mention it to your provider, see if they want to take it to the anemia test early. It's called a hematocrit, hemoglobin and hematocrit. It's nothing fancy. And then if it's low, they'll encourage you to take iron. You don't want to take iron unless it's low, because it can have some like negative side effects. So yeah. Chris, thanks for the follow. Yeah. So tell us in the comments if you feel tired, though, because I think so many people are feeling tired. Of course, Kay, glad that you're here. Quick introduction in case we haven't met. Hello, I'm Hillary. I'm the pregnancy nurse. I've been a nurse since 1997. I have 20 years of labor and delivery experience. And now I am here on the internet reading studies, talking to you guys about how you can make your voice heard and be prepared for your upcoming birth. Tons of videos on here. I have 2 websites, one called Pulling Curls, one called The Pregnancy Nurse. Pulling Curls is my first one, and it actually has the podcast with it. So if you're a podcast listener, you can find me at the Pulling Curls podcast, like pulling curls, because I have curly hair. Yeah. Yeah. So I'm so glad that you guys are here. I just had a video go pretty crazy about screaming in labor. So I want you to tell me in the comments, is it okay to scream in labor, or is it not okay? Kennedy has a question, but it's not about being pregnant. Well, Kennedy, I can promise you that high school math, I'm not stellar at, but if it's something along health lines, you can ask me. I can always say I have no idea. What number is concerning of low amniotic fluid? I had a 5, but anything below 5 isn't. I never remember those numbers because it sort of varies. So amniotic numbers is measured by something called the AFI. AFI normal values. Yeah, so below 5 is low and above 24 is high. So it varies a lot, and it can change during the day depending on your hydration and baby like being asleep or whatever. Most of fluid is baby pee, so you want to make sure that you're staying nice and hydrated. Yeah, so below 5, they want to possibly consider induction or monitoring you, see how baby's doing, things like that. I will say that AFI tends to vary a lot by the ultrasound tech who's taking it, because some of them I would be like, well, this one's going to be wrong. And then the person would come back like the next day and it would be totally different. So I don't know. Is it common for your tubes to grow back after getting them removed? So back, I don't know when they switched, but they used to just like your tubes like this. It's like a pencil, and they would just kind of like bend the pencil in half and then suture it. So the pencil wasn't connected anymore, but you could still reattach it, or it could self reattach. Now they are totally taking out your tube. So the pencil, if this is your tube, it's gone. They cut it here, it's gone. Which, because I guess there's some chance of cancer from the tube. I don't know. So that's why they do it. They take the whole thing out. So Kennedy, it kind of depends on which way. I mean, there is always a chance that an egg can land in your uterus. It's just very, very unlikely with your tube site. Yeah. So a lot of times if your AFI isn't super low, they may recheck it. I'm hoping that they've scheduled a recheck, Chris. Or if baby looks amazing on the monitor, we might say come back tomorrow. Again, a recheck, because sometimes we're like, this baby doesn't look like it has low fluid. Usually when a baby has low fluid, we'll see lots of variables because the cord's kind of getting compressed. Chris, I think that's a good idea. Yeah. Make sure that you're hydrating, eat before you go in, and drink water. Yeah. Let's see, make sure I'm not missing any from Facebook. Nope. Or Instagram sometimes. Kitchi said, I have hypotension. That's when your blood pressure is low. Is there anything my partner can look out for during labor that could signal a problem? Just if you're feeling funky, you're going to feel, patients feel their blood pressure dropping before it even shows on the monitor. Even if I hit it, they're like, oh, my blood pressure feels like it's dropping. If I hit it a minute later, then usually I'll catch it. But if you're feeling something like that, then let your nurse know. Just make sure that you're staying hydrated. And usually during labor, we check your blood pressure very frequently. Keep asking questions, guys. I'm here for another bit. L.A. Turtle said, my kid was born 8 years ago, but I was put to sleep. Can you explain what they mean when babies get stuck? My son had a scar on his head and it's never gone away. So it's hard to say. Sometimes they end up cutting a little bit of the baby when they do a C-section, especially if it's an emergency one, which generally if you're being put to sleep, that's probably what category it was in. Baby wasn't doing well. Or, I mean, they can kind of get lodged in the pelvis, but I haven't seen too much scar from that. So baby can get stuck in the pelvis and not descend, which is probably what happened. But I have a question, but I feel like dumb. No, feel silly. I'm trying to get pregnant. Do you have any recommendations, stuff to do or take? I do not, Victoria, other than making sure that you are trying to get pregnant frequently. We tried to do it every other day, and that was actually very helpful. I worked PM shift, he worked day shift. We didn't see each other very much. It was our third baby. Yeah. But definitely make an appointment with your provider if you're wanting to get pregnant and you're not. There are some basic lab values that they can check that can tell you, if anything small is off, anything like the big things, I guess I would say. Chris says I have stars in my eyes. They won't test me for preeclampsia. I don't know how far along you are. Swollen feet isn't actually a thing for preeclampsia anymore. Yeah, so usually they aren't testing for preeclampsia before 20 weeks, especially if you don't have high blood pressure. So they have to just mitigate, like, is this worth being tested? Keep asking questions. Do you have protein in your urine? They could easily do a protein check in your prenatal appointments. That's very inexpensive and they can just do it. If you don't have protein in your urine, you don't have high blood pressure, and you're not very far along, then they're probably going to want to wait, would be my guess. Oh, you'll be 34 weeks. Yeah, so have them check their urine protein in the office. That's something they can easily do. Stars in your eyes, it's not so much stars in your eyes that they see, it's more blurry vision, usually with a headache. So those are some things to think about. Right side cramping, normal. Haven't had my period yet. I'm not great at early pregnancy. Yeah. Yeah, so that's probably what it was, LA Turtle. Can implantation bleeding be kind of heavy? No cramps, no clots? Hard to say. Sorry, guys. I'm not great at early pregnancy information. Let's see. MZ Gloomy said, I got my tubes removed and then I had an internal bleeding from a torn blood vessel. In the end, I ended up having a hysterectomy, but they didn't remove everything. So now I'm 18 months. You're having a period again. This is from a scheduled C-section. But if you have a hysterectomy, MZ Gloomy, they took out your uterus. So you wouldn't be having a period. So I don't know. That one's got me stumped. I would ask questions on that one. Keep asking questions, guys. Happy to answer. I'll be here for at least another like 10 minutes or so. How to identify this delivery pain? I'm not sure what you're talking about. Would preeclampsia still be measured the same systolic, diastolic for someone with hypotension? Or are those values lower? Yeah, so Kitchi, we take it off of what your usual blood pressure is, right? If it's your usual blood pressure and it's up 20, then that's more disconcerting. But high blood pressure isn't the only sign of preeclampsia. You have to have the lab values, the uric acid, the platelets, liver enzymes, protein in your urine, the protein creatinine ratio in your urine. So it's not just blood pressure. It's not just signs that we outwardly see. Chris, sure. Really quick, if we haven't met, hello, I'm Hillary. I'm the pregnancy nurse. I've been a nurse since 1997. I have 20 years of labor and delivery experience, and I am also the creator of the online prenatal class for couples, The Easy Way to Get Prepared for Birth. You can always find it under resources. It is available 24/7. It is meant to be done with your partner to turn them into a teammate, not just a cheerleader, and it's all under 20-minute videos. So I try and put it all into one 20-minute video so you're not having to just play like a bunch of 3-minute videos, but also so it's not overwhelming. So you can just like get it in while you're eating dinner, get it in after you've eaten dinner if you don't want to eat dinner while watching it. If you guys have any questions about the prenatal class, ask me in the comments. It starts at just $89. So it is a really good value. So much cheaper than most of the birth classes out there. The average price of a birth class is closer to $300. And I'm just not here for that. So thanks for being here. Keep asking your questions in the comments. We have one from Instagram. Getting induced Friday that will give me medication to start dilation. Any options on that? It depends on what medication they're talking about. So prior to 3 centimeters, there is some variation in what they will give, although some hospitals just give one of these. There is misoprostol, which is a tiny little pill. Sometimes it's put into a capsule. There is Cervidil, which is kind of like a miniature tea bag that we put in there, or a very flat, tiny tampon. One of those is the best description. And number 3 is Prostin gel, and that's kind of like a Monistat. Like we put it in a little plunger up there. And those are meant to ripen your cervix, which means it's softening the cervix. It's getting it ready so that when it's ripe, then we can put Pitocin on it, because once you're past 3 centimeters, Pitocin really is the only thing that is going to get you to complete. Now, there are people who take Cytotec and it really pushes them all the way. And I always see this online, but it is really rare. Usually you need to have some Pitocin. So Jim Shotty, that's my tip for you. With those first 3 medications, it's really hospital and provider dependent. I'm a huge fan of misoprostol. I think it gets a bad rap because it can be used in the abortion procedure. And so a lot of people don't like it, but we are not using it for an abortion. We are using it to start contractions. So yeah. What can help with trying to conceive with someone who has PCOS and doesn't have insurance? I don't know. Frequent intercourse, healthy diet, things like that. Staying hydrated. Sorry. What is the difference between prodromal labor and early labor? Honestly, they're very similar. I mean, early labor can go on and off for several days, which is really what prodromal labor is. It's kind of going on and off. It's just those contractions you have before you hit 4-ish centimeters. So, and it's before your cervix is actively dilating. That's why we call it active labor, which they think starts between 4 to 6 centimeters usually. So I actually, on Pulling Curls, I have a whole Braxton Hicks versus labor quiz that you can take that tells the differences between the two. But prodromal labor and early labor are pretty much the same thing. Prodromal, I think, I mean, it's not really a technical term. It's just lasting a real long time and sucks. Sorry, guys, nothing about getting pregnant. Should really learn more about that, but I have to kind of focus. Kitschy said, I'm 35 weeks, baby is not turned. Is he likely to turn before birth? Kitschy, you're far enough along that the more you go, the less likely they are to turn. I have 3 things that I recommend about getting baby to turn. Spinning Babies, it's a website. You can look it up. It has some things you can do. Chiropractor, the earlier you start, the better. So for you, that would be real soon. But you want to find one that is, crap, what method is it? All of a sudden, I can't remember. I want to say Thompson, but it is not that. Webster, the Webster technique. Those chiropractors have extra special training for pregnancy. And if anyone is seeing a chiropractor during pregnancy, you want to make sure that they have Webster technique training. And then the third one is a version. So Kitschy, your provider, might be talking to you about that sometime soon. They're just less likely to turn every week as they get closer to birth, but that doesn't mean they can't turn. Babies turn at 40 weeks. So they're crazy in there. 36 weeks and babies slightly face up. Do babies typically turn during active labor? Yeah. So a lot of times babies will be face up in early labor, and then patients will notice that the pain stops being in their back. It goes more towards their belly, and that's because baby turns. Sometimes they also turn at delivery because they're little stinkers sometimes. What does uterine irritation feel like versus contractions? We call it irritability on the monitor, and it's just kind of like your uterus is like just kind of grumpy. It's not having full like outbursts of anger or contractions. It's just kind of grumpy. And usually that's kind of more crampy. And you'll kind of just feel bleh all the time versus like, oh, that's a contraction. And then it goes away because between contractions, your uterus should relax. Yeah. All right, last call for questions. In case we haven't met, hello, I'm Hillary. I'm the pregnancy nurse. I've been a nurse since 1997. I have 20 years of labor and delivery experience, and I'm also the creator of the online prenatal class for couples, the easy way to get prepared for birth. I'm so glad that you are here with me on the Pregnancy Nurse this morning. We are answering pregnancy questions, but this is the last call for questions, and I'm going to have to hang out, but make sure that you're following me because I am doing videos and all sorts of things that you can help you guys out during your pregnancy. Let's see. Somebody had a question. Are variables worrisome during contractions? Variables aren't super worrisome unless we know your AFI is low. Sometimes variables can be the thing that we're like, oh, she has a low AFI. Not usually, but if they get to lates, like there are different kinds of the baby's heart rate dropping beyond variables that can be disconcerting. So talk with your nurse if you have any questions. How soon can you request an ultrasound after a positive test? That would be up to your provider. And I know a lot of people are having a hard time getting seen early on. My sister's been having a lot of problems lately during her pregnancy. Is that normal? Hard to know what a lot of problems are. She should be talking with her provider though, for sure, if she's feeling like she has problems. Kitschy said, thank you so much for all your videos and information. It has been a massive help to me and my partner during our pregnancy. Oh, Kitschy, that's awesome. Come join me in the online prenatal class for couples where we go through pregnancy, labor, laboring at home, early labor, birth, including C-sections and inductions and postpartum so that you get prepared for all of it. I don't want you guys to miss a thing because if you just follow me here on social media, I am afraid you will miss out on something. I do think my birth class is probably covered in one of my videos or thousands of posts on my website. However, it's so much easier to do it in the class. So yeah, come join me in there. Deja said, hi, I'm 25 weeks. I've been in the hospital since I was 23 weeks. I'm so sorry because baby is growing small. How long do you think it will take her to grow? Oh, that's tricky, Deja. There are so many things that influence how baby grows in the womb. I hope things turn around for you. I'm sorry about that. Being in the hospital is literally the worst. The doctors keep saying they don't know how small the baby will. Tell my sister that's going to be hard to know. I wish your sister the best, but I don't have too much information. AJ, yeah, 9 weeks, that's pretty normal. And if they haven't seen you, a lot of times they won't order an ultrasound. 9 weeks, honestly, that's right in the like time frame that they want you to be seen. Chelix said, I was induced with my first. Any advice for how to know if I'm going to labor at home when I start? Come join me in the online prenatal class for couples. We have all these tips on knowing if you're in labor or not. Really you're going to have a lot of false starts. That's very, very normal. Not everybody does, but most people do. But when contractions get 3 to 5 minutes apart, you're having a hard time talking through them, that is a point where you start to think maybe this is the real thing and I should think about going to the hospital. That's my best advice there. Truly Blessed XO just asked, what are the best ways to get a breech baby to term? We just went over those. The 3 things are Spinning Babies, it's a website, seeing a chiropractor, a Webster technique certified chiropractor, and possibly a version. Depends on how far along you are. Lasogo said, hi, I'm in South Africa. I love you. Thank you so much. Teach me about VBAC. Is it best to consult before or after pregnancy? I have an 8-year-old. I have a whole post on the pregnancy nurse about VBAC. So I'm going to put that. She's over on Facebook. So that's going to be in the comments on Facebook. Can I reply to you? There you go. Lots to think about. If anybody's having any feedback, tell us in the comments. If you're 74% effaced, does that mean much? 33 weeks, 4 days. Not really. Means your cervix is thinning out a little bit, but if it's not opening, usually that's not a big deal. I'm not sure why they know percent that you're effaced. Do they know how many centimeters your cervix is? That's more of what they look at than the percent effaced at that point. So they can measure your cervical length, which is an indicator of possible preterm labor. They can measure it on ultrasound, but it does require a probe that goes inside. So I think that's nice to know before you go in. Deja asks, how long can blood flow throughout the umbilical cord be absent? Is that good or bad? You want blood flow in the umbilical cord for sure. Yeah, definitely want that. They did a cervical check because I was preterm labor, but the baby's head was in the way on the ultrasound. Interesting. I don't know if they'll want to do another ultrasound, but usually if you're early on, they want to check a cervical length, not just feel with their finger. If they're worried about preterm labor, did they do a fetal fibronectin, things like that? Jacob said he just found out that I'm pregnant. That's awesome. Congratulations. Thanks for the follow. All right. I think we've got all the questions answered. Thanks you guys so much for joining me on my live today. It was really fun to have everybody here and have the questions asked. Best of luck to you, Jacob. That's awesome. Exciting for you. And yeah, I think we've answered all the questions. Come join me at the Pregnancy Nurse and come join me at the online prenatal class for couples. I'm so glad you guys are here. Let's all get prepared for birth so we feel ready.